the ambassador of the State of Israel to Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, His Excellency Roey Gilad, joining me this afternoon. Ambassador, thank you so much once again, and I'm happy to have you on my show once more.
Thank you for the invitation.
I seem to be... I want to check your microphone. Can you get the technicians to check this microphone for me?
Oh, my mic is not working.
Yes, let me... Okay. Kindly transition to this side for me. I'll be grateful. 98.9 FM, Pamwada Benju Mediani. My guest this afternoon, Ambassador Roey Gilad, or Ambassador of the State of Israel to Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. We're going to discuss matters regarding the Israeli-Iranian war that just started. You've been comment about Ghana and Israel relations so far. The war they started before the Iranian one came in. The war against Hamas. And how far so far? There were issues with hostages. There were some hostages who were released. There are still some hostages. And we'll find out the status of those hostages and how Israel is faring in that war. Don't forget that there is Hezbollah also somewhere in Lebanon, which has also been a problem for Israel. It was part of the war they started with Hamas. So at a point, Israel was fighting a three-pronged war. I dare say that now there is a fourth one, which is probably the biggest amongst the three they initially started. And we want to catch up with events. There have been criticisms of Israel, and I would pick the thoughts of Ambassador on all of these matters. If you have questions for His Excellency, you want to join us this afternoon with it. We are live on Facebook. Obetima joining on Facebook. Now, questions be over Israel-Iran war. No, you want to send those questions in. Ambassador will address them for you, especially the misconceptions that many may have and the conspiracy theories that are flying about. I would want to hear how these matters are addressed. So, Facebook Live, na yenim komo niemon komo emfa sa issues enyinada eho. Ambassador, once again, I want to thank you for your time right here on my show. Thank you so much for coming. You're looking good.
Thank you very much. I'm trying my best.
I want to suspect you don't joke with your gym sessions.
No, swimming and running and gym.
How much of an exercise is swimming?
I do quite a lot.
Okay.
I do quite a lot. I like swimming. I like running. Running is my base, number one.
Oh, okay.
My number one sport.
Wow.
Swimming can be sometimes a little bit boring. I hope I'm not offending anybody, but I believe that one needs to maintain his body like one needs to maintain his mind. And I'm trying to do both. Are you doing any sports?
I used to do soccer.
Really?
Oh yeah, I was more of a goalkeeper.
Oh, okay.
I was more of a goalkeeper. I stopped soccer many years back.
Really?
Just after high school.
Well, the Black Stars lost, but the radio gained. Because
exactly. There's sportsmanship in radio as well.
By the way, remind me, I didn't intend to speak about it, but your under-15 football team went to Israel before this crisis started. They did very well. They won a tournament. And as I say, now it's about time that the Black Stars will go to Israel, and once the dust will settle over this conflict that I came to speak about. But I speak about conflicts, but actually my love, my passion is sports, and especially soccer.
I know how passionate you are about sports.
Indeed.
And I know what you have done in terms of facilitating the transfer of footballers from Ghana to Israel. I know how much of influence you've been in assisting our footballers travel to Israel and play in your league there.
Yeah, you have some very good players. By the way, men and women. Okay. Also, some women Ghanaian football players are playing for Israeli teams.
Awesome.
Our number one team, Maccabi Haifa, is leaning on the support of a Ghanaian Niger player, soccer player by the name Ali Muhammad. He's playing already many years in Israel. And you know, those soccer players, eventually, they are the real ambassadors. I'm only pretending, but they are the real ambassadors between the two states.
Wow.
We had the coach here, Avram Grant, was coaching your national team.
Exactly.
He's very much still involved in Africa. I think now he's in Zambia. I think sport is the real bridge between the two people.
Exactly. Awesome. And maybe we'll talk about sports later. Let's delve into the recent matters. How is relationship between Ghana and Israel going? The last time was great. It was nice. I'm not too sure the relationship also between Sierra Leone and Liberia is also going. You want to give us some update as to the relationship between these three countries and Israel so far?
Yeah, so thank you.
Especially around this time when there is a lot of turbulence going on in the Middle East.
Indeed. So, indeed, the embassy is in charge. I'm in charge of the relationship with Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. Obviously, because we are residents in Ghana and non-residents in Liberia and Sierra Leone, so most of the attention is here. I presented my credentials to President Bio, the president of Sierra Leone, 2 weeks ago, and yesterday night, I don't know if you know, but he was chosen to be the chair of the ECOWAS for next year. Yeah. Relationship with all the three are good. I think Ghana and Liberia, less unfortunately Sierra Leone, are two of our best friends all over Africa. You know, Africa has 54 states, of which I'm talking about the sub-Sahara Africa. We have nowadays, luckily, relationship with most of the states, short of 5 or 6. And I think both Liberia and Ghana are on the upper part of this group of states that have relations with Israel. We have every now and then some issues that we need to iron between the two states. I always say this is like a marriage. You know, I'm married to the same wife for 35 years. I don't know. I don't know. If
I've met your wife.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
that's
I've met your
true.
wife.
That's true. So,
very lovely woman.
So indeed, but every now and then, you know, sometimes you have differences. I think if you have relationship of 35 years and you don't have sometimes disagreements, it's not natural. So the relationship between Israel and Ghana are nearly 70 years.
Exactly.
So we opened the office here in 56. You gained your independence in 57, but we were here already in 56. So it's nearly 70 years.
That's right.
I think the relationship are solid, are mature, in such a sense that whenever there are some disagreements along the years, we have a good system to iron them. There is an ongoing political dialogue between the two states, between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, presidency, relevant ministries, and I think we can be happy with the level of relationship. We always aim for more.
We always aim for more. But if you gauge the impact and influence of Israel in Africa, what would be your assessment? Is Israel pretty much on the ground in Africa in terms of relationships, in terms of trade, in terms of diplomacy? In what areas, for instance, would you find Israel?
I think during the years, we have a significant development efforts in Africa, especially if you compare it to a state in Israel, which is quite small. You know, people in Africa, often they think that Israel is as superpower as America or as China. So I have news for your listeners. This is not the case. Israel is a small place. We are 25 square kilometers, which makes Ghana 10 times bigger than us. Ghana is 250,000 square kilometers. Ghana is 10 times bigger than us. We have 10 million people. Ghana has 32 million people. Israel is a small place. Was always a small place. In the last...
was always a small place.
Yeah, but what my point is that the size is less important. What's happening in the last 2 years, since actually 23rd of, since the 7th of October 23, and let alone the last 2 weeks, that Israel is facing a war.
Yeah.
And this war, has to be said, is consuming many of our resources. Resources that in the past, and hopefully in the future, once the dust will settle, will again be reinvested in the welfare of Africa. So I think bilaterally, we are doing very good with Africa, vis-à-vis Ghana, vis-à-vis Liberia, vis-à-vis Sierra Leone, vis-à-vis the 48 countries I think that we have relationship with out of the 54. On the, I would say, on the organization level, we have some issues with the Organization of African Union. No, this is African Union. We are still trying to cement our status as observers.
What are the issues?
There is no issue. There are more than 100 states which are considered to be observers of the African Union, including states that, how should I put it mildly, their contribution to Africa have not been so significant, like Syria, like North Korea. We, that our contribution to Africa was, I think, significant, find it hard to cement our status as observers in the AU, and this is because of political reasons. So, unfortunately, on this level, on the AU, we have issues, but on the bilateral issues, by the way, ECOWAS, we just spoke about it. They invited Prime Minister Netanyahu when Alan Johnson Sirleaf, the former leader of Sierra Leone, was the chair of ECOWAS. She invited Prime Minister Netanyahu. The former president of Liberia, when she was the chair of ECOWAS, way back, she invited Prime Minister Netanyahu. And I think the relationship with ECOWAS are excellent, bilateral relationship excellent. We need to amend our relationship with the African Union organization. This will be done as well.
So I get the sense that the various campaigns in terms of war that is going on is the reason you haven't invested much in Africa in the last few years. Your attention has shifted for now, and when the dust settles, Israel will turn attention to Africa and begin to again.
That's my point. You understand, the war, other than the other negative outcome, is a very expensive thing. Each of the anti-ballistic missiles that we try, Israel is being attacked now day in and day out by hundreds of Iranian missiles. We managed to intercept most of them, not all of them, most of them. But each intercepting missile that is challenging the ballistic missile is very expensive. This is a very, very expensive war.
But you have a rich ally, so...
Bismarck, one of the pillars of our national security is that we lean on ourselves at the end of the day. Indeed, we have very strong strategic partnership with the United States, which is second to none. You all know that the night before yesterday, they have decided to join us in the campaign of putting an end to the Iranian nuclear ambitions. So we have good friends.
Let's stay a bit more on the bilateral relations with Ghana, and then we'll move on to Iran proper. I did read that the Foreign Affairs Minister had separate meetings with you and the Iranian ambassador regarding the safety of our nationals in both countries. I was happy to read that the first batch of evacuees had been flown from Iran to Turkey.
Not flown. I think they were through land. I think they were driving by cars.
But they went by land.
By land.
I see.
I think they went by land.
Okay, I see. That must be.
I didn't visit Iran lately, but to the best of my understanding, they were driven by
awesome.
by land.
How long is that journey between Iran and Turkey?
They have a border. They have a border. So look, those are two talking about small countries. Both Iran and Turkey are huge countries. I think I told you I was the head of our mission in Ankara for 2 years. Those are huge countries. But as far as look, that has to be said. The situation in Iran is more dire than in Israel. In this conflict, we suffer, but the Iranians suffer a lot more. And I think it was a priority, to the best of my understanding, for your Ministry of Foreign Affairs to evacuate, first of all, your staff and your people from Iran, and I can understand it. In Tel Aviv, as far as I understand, the embassy was not closed, unlike your embassy in Tehran. But the activity was brought to a minimum. I think people are working from home, but your embassy in Tel Aviv is still open, is still active, and I hope this will remain the situation.
So I'm getting some insight from what you've just said as to why our nationals in Iran were first to be evacuated.
Indeed.
Your point is that as much as Iran is big, it is the most vulnerable in this war, and therefore evacuating Ghanaian nationals there is better than coming to Israel to evacuate.
Let me just say, Bismarck, we are not unlike the Iranians. We are not targeting civil targets. We are aiming nuclear targets.
We'll get into all of that.
No, I'm just saying. Okay. I don't want somebody to think, God forbid.
Exactly.
God forbid that we are aiming the Ghanaian people. No. That's not the case. Yeah. And actually, I told them in your Minister of Foreign Affairs, we'll do our utmost to help your people, both the diplomats, if you want, and the 922 Ghanaians that are in Israel.
Okay.
We'll help them to live to the best of our ability. I was happy to see that no order was given to your diplomats in Tel Aviv to leave, unlike, as far as I understand, the order that was given to your embassy
in Iran,
which is closed currently. I hope I got it right. I hope I understood it correctly.
Awesome. So what's the plan like to evacuate Ghanaians in Israel? Are there timelines to it?
No. He or she who wants to leave, currently the best way to do it is through the land checkpoints, either with Egypt or I think might be easier with Jordan.
Okay.
Those land crossing points are open. Flights have not been renewed in full capacity.
Okay.
I think Ethiopian Airlines, which is the main way that Ghanaians people are using in order to come back, is not flying yet to Israel. They stopped flying when this campaign started, and I think they are not flying. Most of the companies are not flying. You can take a boat to leave to Cyprus, but as far as I understand, if somebody asks me, and I've been asked by many people, I think the best way to evacuate, if you wish, is through one of the two land crossing, either to Jordan or to Egypt.
Operation Rising Lion.
Rising Lion.
Tell me, what's the history behind this attack on Iran? Is there any history to it? I asked that because, well, in the recent past, we've heard Benjamin Netanyahu talk about the nuclear capacity of Iran. Severally, he's raised such a matter on global platforms. And recently, we're hearing that the target is about the regime in Iran. And that's why I ask, what is the history to this? Is Israel attacking Iran because of its nuclear capacity, or it's because you want the Ayatollah regime off?
Israel is addressing the challenge of a nuclear Iran, and Iran that has huge stock of ballistic missiles. Israel is not interested, or this campaign is not aimed to bring down the Ayatollah's regime in Iran. If, as an outcome of the campaign, the Iranian people decide that they had enough with this autocratic, anti-democratic regime in Tehran of the mullahs, I don't think in Israel we shall shed too many tears. That has to be said. But this is for the Iranian people to decide. Our challenge with this regime has started way back in 1979. In February 1979, Mr. Khomeini took over from the Shah. And after a very short time, they started addressing their agenda against Israel, calling for the destruction of Israel. Let me read to you something that was published lately, last month actually, by the current supreme leader, the supreme religious leader. Imagine Mr. Khamenei that said months ago the following. Definitely, he said to the audience, the Zionist regime is the source of corruption, war and rifts. Zionist regime that is a lethal, dangerous, cancerous tumor should certainly be eradicated, and it will be. We hear such a genocidal agenda. This is genocide.
You consider it so?
It is genocide. It is calling to eradicate from the face of the earth a whole group of people only because of their religion. Only because he believes the Jews should not have a sovereign...
It talks about the Zionist regime and not the Israeli people.
The Zionist regime and the Israeli people who live in Israel are basically the same. So we hear this terrible propaganda since early in 1979. Why did we decide to address the challenge now? Mainly because we have many elements in the Middle East who would like to get rid of the Jewish entity, of the Jewish sovereign entity known as a Zionist state. We have, unfortunately, since our establishment as a state in 1948, 9 years before Ghana did, we came through those challenges day in and day out. But this is when such an enemy is also... Are we good?
Oh, sure, we're good.
When such an enemy that calls for the eradication of Israel, for erasing it from the face of the earth, is also developing the means, the ways to do it, to implement it, either by a nuclear bomb, or by ballistic missile, or even by terrorist proxies that are all over in Israel, this is when we become nervous. When somebody is just talking but cannot implement his agenda, okay, we have many adversaries like that. But when we have a regional superpower like Iran, that states clearly they would like to get rid of Israel, and at the same time they develop enough enriched uranium that will be enough for nine nuclear bombs. You don't need, by the way, 9 to get rid of Israel. We are a small place.
1 is enough.
1 or 2, but whenever they are just just about in one more step, they will be there developing those 9 nuclear bombs. As for ballistic missiles, maybe we're a little bit late. Maybe we should have done it before, not like now that they have already between 2,000 and 3,000 ballistic missiles, and their production is producing 300 missiles every month. Like in a year, they can reach 3,000 missiles. There is a wide consensus in Israel.
So you're choosing
this was the time to address this challenge. If there is a debate, is that maybe we needed to do it before.
Okay, so...
There is another reason why we decided to do it now, but I'll come to it later.
Okay, so I just want to clarify the first reason. So your point is that they have sworn to clear Israel off the surface of the earth long in the 70s, but you have chosen to respond to it at this time because Israel says that Iran is not just talking, but
they mean business.
They mean business by their nuclear power.
Exactly.
But is there real evidence that indeed there is nuclear weapon or Iran is actually embarking on a nuclear program? Is there real evidence?
Currently, they did not develop, luckily, those bombs, but they are very close. They've developed the enriched uranium to a level which is much, much more than what is needed for civil uses. They kept on saying, the Iranians, that our nuclear, I would say, industry is only to produce energy. One can ask himself, how come a state that has so much fuel, one of the biggest amount of fuels all over the world, is developing so much money to develop nuclear energy? But even if
maybe they want to diversify their energy sources.
You know what? Even if we were naive and we said, yes, this is for to diversify the energy sources, as is being done sometime, still, to enrich uranium for civil uses, you need to enrich it for 3.6%.
Okay.
They have enriched uranium to 60%, while what you need in order to build those 9 bombs is 90%. But it's not that you need now 30% of the effort to reach it from 60 to 90. In order to take and uranium, as is being found in the world. It's called yellow cake. That's the name of raw uranium.
Okay,
and
yellow
to
cake.
Bring it, yellow cake. And to bring it to a level of a nuclear bomb, you have to enrich it for 90%. Currently, they're at 60. But the effort which is needed to bring it from 0 to 60 is 99% of the effort. What is left for them now is only 1% of effort, 1% of the work. They are now at the threshold of developing a nuclear bomb, and they are just about to cross it. The only thing that prevents them of crossing the threshold is their own political decision that currently they want to be on the threshold but not to cross the threshold. We could not trust, and I don't think any reasonable government would trust an enemy that calls for your destruction and is at the threshold of developing the weapon to allow him fulfill his wish, his dream. As I told you before, there is another reason. Other than the fact that we saw that they are accelerating the machines and reaching a point where they are just about to cross the threshold. There is another reason, which might not be familiar to your listeners.
Okay.
The Iranians managed to develop a bunch of what we call proxies around Israel that circled Israel like a ring of fire, if you wish. The most important one were the Hezbollah in Lebanon. It was the Hezbollah in Lebanon, and it was Syria, and the militias in Iraq, and the Houthis, and the Hamas in Gaza, and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza. The strongest proxy was the Hezbollah in Lebanon. They had tens of thousands of missiles. And the whole idea was that the Hezbollah will be like a safety net, like, if you wish, an insurance policy for the Iranians, that if indeed Israel will decide to address the Iranian nuclear sites, as we did 2 weeks ago. No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Iran will operate this insurance policy in what way? That Hezbollah will launch thousands of missiles against Israel. Now, as you might know, Israel have managed to address the Hezbollah challenge to beat them, to push them from the border, and to put them into defense. Now there is a big argument, a big conflict in Lebanon. Well, the Lebanese themselves, they tell the Hezbollah, enough is enough. Your war with Israel is not our war. In other words, we have managed to bring down this policy, this insurance policy, if you wish, of the Hezbollah, making sure that Israel will not address the Iranian challenge, because if it will address, then they will attack us. So nowadays, the Hezbollah is not in a position anymore to defend Iran. Iran is exposed. Iran is quite weak. And we felt that this is if you wish, we spoke about football. This is the 89th minute before injury time that we can address this challenge. And this is what we are doing.
So there are two key reasons. One has to do with the nuclear weapon program you allege that Iran is embarking on, and it's so close to weaponizing. And the second has to do with the proxy factions who are fighting on behalf of Iran.
Indeed, you got it right.
That is what you started with. You started dealing with the perceived Iranian proxies.
First of all,
that's how
we
you started.
manage the proxies or not. The only proxy which is still standing, look, Hamas is in the defense. We didn't finish the job, but Hamas is in the defense. In Hezbollah, I think our achievements were bigger than we thought. We thought that the Hezbollah is the most dangerous enemy, the most dangerous proxy. We managed to bring him down. Syria, which was once an ally of Iran, is not there anymore. There is a new regime. The Iranian militias in Iraq are now in the defense as well. So far, they didn't intervene. The only proxy which is still standing are the Houthis in Yemen. this is something, a challenge we can deal with. It's not bringing the life in Israel down.
Why would a small country, as you describe, be entangled in multiple wars around the same time? And I've been asking myself, why would Israel bring this upon itself, engaging multiple enemies at the same time? That is biting more than you can chew, isn't it?
Bismarck, had it been up to us, we would be happy to choose one at a time. But this reality of being involved in so many fronts altogether, I don't know if you mentioned all of them. So it started in Gaza. Immediately with the Hamas on the 7th of October 23, immediately Hezbollah joined the campaign. Later on, also all kind of elements, terrorists from Syria, started addressing or challenging Israel. The militias in Iraq, the Houthis. We had some issues with supporters of Hamas in Judea and Samaria. That's another front you didn't mention. We don't choose our enemies, we don't control the timetable. And the idea was really to bring down Israel. Most of them are proxies, are terrorist organizations. The master of all those proxies is Iran.
So you're at a point where you have been able to tame the proxies and you're going for the head of the snake.
At the beginning, we addressed, if you look, I always say that this is like a poisonous snake. So at the beginning, we started with the tail of the snake, moving to the head. Now we are addressing the head of the snake. And once the head of the snake will be cut, not in the sense of changing the regime. No, again, that's not our aim. But once we will make sure that the poison is not there, if you wish, mainly the nuclear ability and the ballistic missile, let's call it the poison of the snake, if we stick to this example of a poisonous snake, then if the snake is not poisonous, let him do whatever he wants.
How do you convince those who are unconvinced and remain unconvinced that this is not about regime change? When we see the example in Syria, Assad has run away and is taking refuge in Russia.
True, but not because of us.
Yeah, I
agree. He
agree.
had many enemies at home.
I agree. But of course, I've played several tapes of Benjamin Netanyahu, this afternoon included, where he talks about the regime change and that this war is not about the Iranian people, it's about the regime that is autocratic, and very soon they are going to breathe a sigh of relief as Israel will work towards rescuing them from this regime. You hear such statements from Bibi Netanyahu.
I think the Prime Minister was quite careful about it. Indeed, I think some other ministers in the cabinet have sounded some, I would say, all kind of statements that are not aligned with the government policy.
But this is Netanyahu's comments.
As far as I know, and I'm following, he's my prime minister at the end of the day. As far as I remember, unless you'll put something
you want me to play it for you to hear?
Yeah, I think so far he was very, very careful about it. And we say very clearly, again, as I said from the beginning, if the Iranian people will decide that that's the time to bring, again, a democracy into Iran by bringing down this autocratic regime, we will not shed any tears, but it is up to them. This is not our aim. This is not our target. And if you put something else on record, I'll be happy to hear.
Okay. Let me play back what I've been playing previously today, and then maybe the policy has changed. Let's find out exactly what Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, said about regime change and the agenda behind this, as it were, war.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. In recent years, Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs. 9. In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival. 80 years ago, the Jewish people were the victims of a Holocaust perpetrated by the Nazi regime. Today, the Jewish state refuses to be a victim of a nuclear Holocaust perpetrated by the Iranian regime. Now, as Prime Minister, I've made it clear time and again, Israel will never allow those who call for our annihilation to develop the means to achieve that goal. Iran fired 300 ballistic missiles at Israel. Each of these missiles carries a ton of explosives and threatens the lives of hundreds of people. Soon, those missiles could carry a nuclear payload, threatening the lives not of hundreds, but of millions. Iran is gearing up to produce 10,000 of those ballistic missiles within 3 years. Now just imagine 10,000 tons of TNT landing on a country the size of New Jersey. This is an intolerable threat. It too must be stopped. Iran is now working on what it calls the new plan to destroy Israel. You see, the old plan failed. Iran and its proxies tried to encircle Israel with a ring of fire and to attack us with the horrible attack of October 7th. But the people of Israel, the soldiers of Israel, rose like lions to defend our country. We crushed Hamas, we devastated Hezbollah, we hit Iranian proxies in Syria and Yemen. And when Iran directly attacked us twice last year, we struck back inside Iran itself. Yet in defending ourselves, we also defend others. We defend our Arab neighbors. They too have suffered from Iran's campaign of chaos and carnage. Our actions against Iran's proxy Hezbollah led to the establishment of a new government in Lebanon and the collapse of Assad's murderous regime in Syria. The peoples of those two countries now have a chance for a different future, a better future. So too do the brave people of Iran. And I have a message for them. Our fight is with the brutal dictatorship that has oppressed you for 46 years. I believe that the day of your liberation is near. And when that happens, the great friendship between our two ancient peoples will flourish once again.
Just what I said. We, again, the day of the liberation of the Iranian people, I think will be a happy day for the Iranian people, for Israel, for most of the world. Because
now, what does it mean when he says that this is not about the Iranian people, it's about the regime?
It doesn't mean that we're going to contribute to this day. Our attacks, our Air Force, is addressing nuclear site, military site. We brought down also 10 nuclear scientists, that has to be said, because they have the know-how of developing the bomb. We are not, again, if the Iranian people will decide to use this chaos and bring down their own leadership, which is really dominating them and making their life miserable since 1979, we are not going to shed any more tears, but we are not going to contribute it. We are not after a regime change. If indeed what we do now by addressing the military targets will encourage the Iranian people to revolt against their leadership, this is their own business.
Is that what Israel is hoping?
If we hope, we certainly hope to see a new leadership in Tehran, a leadership that will not mess around the situation in the Middle East. You know, this is exactly like the German chancellor said. Israel is doing the dirty work for the rest of the world. Our point is that Iran is bad news. It is bad news to Israel. Let's start. It is bad news for its own people, for the 90 million people, the people who lives in Iran. It is bad news for Israel. It is bad news for the Middle East, where they are trying to destabilize the Middle East since 1979. They are bad news for Europe, and they are even bad news for Africa. They have been involved all over Africa, including in Ghana, operating their own terror cells, trying to address all kind of Israeli offices here, Senegal, in Ethiopia. Iran is bad news.
Here in Ghana?
Only, here in Ghana as well in
Really?
2021. Yeah. You can find it. It's not a secret. If it had been a secret, you wouldn't hear it from me. But in Ghana, in Senegal, in Ethiopia, in Nairobi, all over the place, you can find Iranian fingerprints. By the way, in Argentina, I think in 1994, they had a huge success. They had twice as success. They brought down our embassy, and then they brought down the Jewish center in Amia. In both cases, they caused hundreds of people dead. So in Argentina at the time, it's a different story. We believe they had some support. But Iran, that's our point. If let me put it this way, if indeed this campaign will bring a change in the regime in Iran, I think it will be good news not only for the Iranian people and not only for Israel, but to all the world.
So the focus in Iran is the nuclear weapons, and that if it leads to the toppling of the current regime, so be it. But you're saying that that is not the focus of Israel.
I think the way you said it is the right thing. If indeed it will lead into the change of a regime, we will not.
But let me stay there. Let me stay there.
This is not the aim.
Okay, let me stay there a little longer.
Please.
And still probe. I mean, there are those who say that that is unconvincing, because if you hear the Benjamin Netanyahu tape I just played.
By the way, I listened very carefully.
Yeah, he was glorifying the regime change in Syria. He was glorifying that regime change. And he talked about how they dealt with the proxies in Syria. So Israel played...
And also in Lebanon, in new
exactly.
government.
So Israel played a certain role in toppling the Assad regime
I'm not so
by
sure.
proxy.
In Lebanon, maybe we did by bringing down the proxy and encouraging the Lebanese people at long last to tell Hezbollah enough is enough. Weapons should be owned by the government, not by terrorist organization. In Syria, we were taken by surprise. That has to be said.
Really?
The Assad regime, which was very much anti-Israeli, collapsed within 2 weeks. Apparently, they were very weak. And another reason why they collapsed so fast is that they could not lean anymore on Iran, because Iran was already by then switched from offense to defense. We were taken by surprise by the speed that the Assad regime fell down. At the beginning, we had also some suspicious vis-a-vis the new people in Damascus. As far as I know, they don't have any anti-Israeli agenda, to the best of my knowledge. But again, I don't think it will be wise to draw lessons from what happened in Lebanon and Syria over Iran. If indeed the Iranian people will decide to follow the example of the opposition in Syria, let be it.
All right, so let me move on. I have tried to transcribe portions of Ayatollah Khamenei's reaction to what happened over the weekend. And let me read portions of it and pick your thoughts. So I quote, "The second point is that this act of the Zionist regime is foolish, malicious." Okay, let me start it all afresh. The second point is that this act, the Zionist regime's foolish, malicious attack on our country, took place at a time when our government officials were engaged in negotiations indirectly and through intermediaries with the U.S. side. There was no indication on the part of Iran that signaled a military move or a sudden, harsh move. Yet, you hit Iran whilst this negotiation was ongoing. Some have, based on this, criticized Israel for one, being unfair to the US and also being unfair to the process that was leading to almost a diplomatic disarmament of whatever Iran is accused of doing. How do you respond to this?
So I will start with the end. This process was not leading to the disarmament of Iran.
Okay.
On the contrary, Iran has refused constantly to put an end to the enrichment. As I told you, the enrichment is the key for the bomb. And they had the key in their hand. It's only what we call a turnkey. Now they are in a place which is turnkey, that they only now need to turn the key, or at least this was the situation before we started the campaign a week ago. This turnkey, this is the place where they were not willing to roll back, and now they will be forced to roll back.
Benjamin Netanyahu calls it weaponizing the nuclear power.
Okay, so the issue is as such. Again, we cannot have here a seminar, and I'm not an expert, but building a bomb from from uranium raw material, first of all, you need to go through a conversion of it to gas. Then you have to enrich the gas. Then you convert it again to metal.
Okay.
And then after the metal, there is the weaponization that is basically putting it into a bomb, then putting the bomb on a missile, and then, God forbid, bringing an end to the Zionist regime, if you wish. So weaponization is actually part of the process, again, conversion, enrichment, another conversion, then weaponization, and then the bomb. That's the end of the seminar on nuclear,
Thank you for,
on nuclear
that's a crash
engineering.
course.
That's
a crash course.
And that's the limit of my knowledge. I'm a diplomat after all. I'm not an expert on nuclear engineering. However, I think the best answer to your question is the fact that the United States themselves decided to join the campaign.
Okay.
They gave a lot of time for these negotiations with the Iranians. I think they themselves realized eventually that the Iranians are bluffing them, just as they were bluffing the international community for so many years. The Iranians, I think it's clear now to everybody, even the IAEA, a day before the campaign started in this famous non-compliance decision, said, they did not say, the IAEA, is that Iran has a military program, but they said that they cannot testify anymore that that the Iranian nuclear program is civil. When this comes from the IAEA,
it's a cause for concern.
It's a very serious thing. And I think, again, the fact that the Americans have decided to join the Israeli campaign is the best example, and it's the best answer to your question, to show that also the Americans eventually did not believe that the Iranians mean business. If indeed, by the way, now, after this military campaign, the Iranians will be willing to go back to the negotiating table with the US, and they will mean business, and they will be willing to put a complete end to the enrichment, this will be an outcome that we shall welcome. So in other words, eventually, one welcomed outcome of the campaign is if the Iranians will go back into a diplomatic engagement, but this time they will be serious, unlike what they were at the beginning.
But they maintain that the Zionist enemy has made a grave mistake and committed a serious crime. It must be punished, and is already being punished. It is being punished right now. The punishment that the Iranian nation and our armed forces have delivered and currently carrying out and have planned for the future for this evil enemy is a severe punishment and has already weakened them. One would say the U.S. intervention has escalated this, and Israel must be ready for the repercussions. How safe is Israel?
Well, look, I will not deny that Israel, since the beginning of the campaign, like a week ago, we've absorbed, quote unquote, around 500 missiles and drones and attacking drones. We've managed to intercept most of them, but we said from the very early beginning, our anti-missile system is not 100% proof.
You call it what, the Iron Dome?
Iron Dome is usually for I would say, for missiles coming from Lebanon or from Gaza.
Okay.
What we use to bring down the ballistic missiles is either what's known as Arrow or David Sling. We have our, another seminar, our anti-aircraft, our anti-ballistic missile system it has a few layers. There is the lower layer, which is the Iron Dome, which is mainly against missiles that are coming either from Gaza or used to come from Lebanon, not anymore, luckily. And then there is another layer called David Sling, another layer that is called Arrow, and then there is the Air Force. Again, I'm not an expert
so about
at this.
4
I know
levels.
the basic. We have
4
I
levels
think
of
basically,
air
basically, I think we have three layers, 3 levels. The system is good. It's not perfect. It might be second to none in the world, only because we have those challenges more than any other country in the world. It's not perfect, and we know that missiles, attacking ballistic missile, can penetrate every now and then. So indeed, those 500 attacking missiles and drones caused so far 25 dead people in Israel, and few hundreds that have been injured, and a significant damage. I'm not saying
significant damage.
Yeah, to buildings, as I said before.
Including hospitals,
including a hospital, a huge hospital in the south of Israel that is serving a lot of Muslim people, the Bedouins, who lives in the Negev. The Iranians, and I think what you read here from Mr. Khamenei, what he said, are not shy of addressing civil targets. And indeed, so far, through those 500 attacking ballistic missiles, they killed 25 citizens, they injured hundreds, and they caused a significant damage.
One would say you brought it upon yourself.
What we brought on ourselves is the understanding that we will need to pay a price, but we are willing to pay the price, exactly like we are willing to pay the price in order to bring down the Hamas in Gaza. Look, Israel is 77 years old. You are 68 years old. Luckily for you, you have challenges, but you don't have, like us, day in and day out, enemies and adversaries that are challenging your right to establish your own sovereign entity in the Middle East, a state. Again, Hamas and Hezbollah are actors that are using terror. They are dangerous, but they are not as dangerous as an actor which might be, or a player which might be using a nuclear bomb to bring you down. Didn't we know that we shall pay a price? Of course we knew. By the way, our, what we call a home front command, have made a very good job. And in Israel, most houses, not all of them, have a safe room in the house. Where the family can run inside whenever there is an attack. They close the door, and this is a safe place.
And that reflects the fact that you say that you are surrounded by enemies.
We knew already for the last 10 to 20 years that the next war will be a war of missiles. This didn't take us by surprise. Old houses, by the way, do not have this safe room. We have a shelter, one shelter for all the building. And there are some very, very old houses that do not have even a shelter. And then the municipalities, they open a public places underground. So the population in Israel, if indeed the people listen to the government, there is a siren usually 10 minutes before the attack starts. So people usually, they have between 10 and 12, sometimes 50 minutes to look for a shelter. If they are serious and if they recognize the danger, then they can save their life. I don't know how many of those 25 people didn't take the danger seriously, but nowadays, as it stands now, people can save their lives. The damage to the building is there. It's not the end of it, but we took it into account and we understand that once and for all, we have to bring this challenge into an end.
98.9 FM, Epahwada Benju Medine. I am having a wonderful conversation with the ambassador of Israel to Ghana. He's also in charge of Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. I'm just trying to paraphrase the conversation we've had so far. Anyway, Israel ne Iran and Tokoya air causeway. We've been trying to find out near Kobaya and Tokawe by with Ghana and Israel. Ayon Kofa and said yet, Israel Abba Ghana Hanmo 1956 ton, even before Benya independence. Now Israel Ewa Hanmo did that. Na Ayadia Ayon Kofa no akwa ni mu ache. Bibusa ni se na eba Africa ni Israel. Ayana Ayon Kofa ne te saying, say baby to say country bit to say China. Any US for no New Africa pa obi apre dabre ewo Africa ha na Israel ono so ne niema wo ye Africa ne sen no so o maye bi ne momo no ntokwasem atwa bo ho ahye nti na ma America krani o maye omani efi Africa a wo mo bo wo mo ho bai na dust no anase ye nyina emuju a yade a omo wone pa e de ma Africa mo de omani besi Africa pa ye di Iran ne Israel komo ihu ama bebusa se mukaka Benjamin Netanyahu dana no say Iran for a nuclear weapon. Na nuclear weapon no said the tie no enye normal bombs here movie action movie a boom na baby kutu bia you know it be two nuclear bomber etimi essay a whole of mine intino ayade a eye weapon bi ehu pa da bia mo ka so mo wo adansedie pa e kire se Iran for was adi anything also nuclear energy ni the omo countries bebre war but omo de obani de omachi ehu se nuclear energy no omo san akra pege mu de akwakoye bomb ankasa na omo nye bomb ni wie ye ba omo akwanimu akodum pempenso a ba bi omo du no akase omo ebepia to mu keke na chese omo ye bomb na wie anesa na obekasa no kire okan ade bi a opania no da Iran ano emri bi atwam kafa Israel ho a wokyira Israel man ne oman a opese anka Iran sanase yini fi ewiase asase so kura because wo do mu mbusa Israel no ye man na se obi kasa asem we kyerɛw na akyire hu se o nuclear energy nuclear energy no resource o de ye uranium nso wo de asakra ni akodum pempenso a wo pade aye topaye na wakasa asem we ato ho a ewo se won so da ho so na utu hu anamon enti ne omo ye ne se omo ntena ho ma aboa wo won beka omo mrekwa abada wo mo nchen enti omo tu wo mo so sa na omo ankwanko yusu eye sa nuclear bomb no ewo mo so na nuclear bomb we mo ye wi a Israel ya no mo de ba attack wo mo enti se sa na tie de a na wo se omutu anamon na womo etu Iran for eso esa busa se na dipa bebre ewo ho a sa asemu a wo kan ento wo masum enya de convince wo because ase enye nuclear weapon bia no mu di akire na emomo no aban na wo Israel na no mu di omani susu metu sa aban no because over ekoso Syria ene Syria ban yetu agu enti utie Benjamin Netanyahu nso a ne kasa no oka koka ba bi se enche Iran for nankasa omanfo no omoho behenhan omoho beto mo na ntokwa we mfa eye Iran for no ho na emumu no aban na wo Iran no ena omudi omani asuom so na enche bia ntokwa we wi a eyade a omo ebede wo mo ho na mbusa se sa asem na okaye no enye no na daadie se enye nuclear weapon bia na mudi akire na emumu no aban na mo mpekeke ana o kire se nuclear weapon nti no mudi akire na emumu no se nuclear weapon no wo mo tusu sano na ebema Iran for na nkasa sori waka akasa ya aban akofo oye ne de abeto yesu nti ye mpamo aban na ene ese wosimu wo de bo baako akunu maamienu enti eno de eno no betimi abeye emfaso bi ebeba ntokwa n'echi na nye no ne ade a esi wo ani so pa na mekenkan asɛm a ɛyɛ opani a wɔda Iran aban n'ani ɔda aban no animu ɛkaeɛ ɛfa Israel ho na wɔka sɛ emra Israelfoɔ kɔto missiles to Iran no saa time na United States of America for any Iran enkrofo eben wo kasa bia wo mutie di nkomo fa nuclear power no ho se be ya se omo person mo de bomba na nko mo agyae saa nkobo ne koso na ndu ba bia na Israel for koto missile eto Iran na saa de na wo mo ye no according to Ayatollah Khamenei no na ade di pefe se ayade a Israel ne US for no aye kanana se omo beto ahye eye Iran for so na wo se ansa na Israel beto bomb na to eye Iran no na bribie no wonu mu ade die se Iran for aye ready so mo be kontokwa bi bibusa ne saa asemi na oda na die se enye Israel for na ka kire US for so mo koto bomb ento eye Iran US for na wo ni Iran for ni di nkomo fa nuclear bomb ya hu ya ankwasa bedu mpempeso bo hu se Iran for no wo nya serious ade no wo masinkete se ade no wo beye enti US for na ready ade na hu se ade we no se ya ntusu sa e de asem beba enti wo mo na free wo mo pem na ekoto share Iran so me no ka se weekend Donald Trump koto bomb with 3 nuclear sites wo Iran ena womo asɛ no ɔsɛ enye Israel na kache Iran so munye bibi na enye Israel na kache US so munye bibi na US for na nkasa omani tuamu bi no mahunu asɛm no sɛ de ekɔ ena omatu anamon a omatu na mebusa sɛ papa no so asan ka asɛm bi a wo kyerɛ sɛ ade a Israel fo ayɛ no omakɔka ntɔkwa kɛseɛ pa na saa ntɔkwa no so ombɛko ama nafono wɔ mu ama Iran for so mo be twi Israel for so papa na omo be punish wo mo pa sa punishment no omo ye ni sesi agusu ya omo be koso aye na said enkobo na kono mibuza ne se enti sa asem ya papa ya kan Israel na nkasa na ho ye safe ho ye ba bi amanfo ewo asumdua na se wo mo wo banbo kese ana so ye wo enime bi a ye de agu akwamu ase bomb bi fi soro ba entimi ma bebo ma animu nemomu no technology enema ni bi wo ho a ebi fam ni ade na o kan kra no nanu ya Iran for ba ko de ba ko mo to ye akwahwe hospital so enipa 20 awu be 100 de o ma prepra edan a o ma se bebre enti o mo wo air defense system enema o mo de bo wo mo ho ban wo wiem ye be 3 layers ba ko mienu miensa na ni nyina no se be ya ebebo wo mo ho ban Nemo no said tie no wo targeti military installation na se asrafo atenabea ewo Iran no Iran fo mu de mani asi hospitals a ewo eye Israel na wo mu prepra wo no mu a wo mu nya sojafo na wo mu enka eye entokwa no ho baabia wei me bɔ ne tɔfa nkomo no baabia ye di aba beduo no aha na wei ene nkomo no ne etuamu pa ene baby a yaka ede ababedu na let's continue and then probably find out how
this was a tweet.
Say again, yeah, that's tree.
So okay, I have to improve my tweet.
You have to.
I don't know if you translated me the right way.
Well, your media man is here and he was nodding in the affirmative. So
I'm joking.
Yeah, but let's begin with your tree lessons.
Yes,
from the way you mentioned the word tree.
Okay,
let's begin your lessons from there. So you said twi.
Yes, how should I say?
It's tree.
That's very complicated.
I know you don't have such alphabets in your language, so
no, we don't.
So
we don't.
like, let's deal with the sounds.
Okay.
E,
E,
chi.
Say again.
E.
No, say all the word.
Chi.
Tree. Tree.
The T is silent. Chi.
Tree.
Yes.
I need to improve.
You would with time.
I will work on it. Next time you'll invite me, I might be even saying a sentence or two in tree.
Okay, so let me try this one. The name of my show is Epahuadabeng.
Oh my goodness, I think
we'll break it in syllables. We'll break it into syllables.
I think it's even...
Yes,
okay, let's try again.
So that is it here. This E-P-A-H-O-A and D-A-B-E-N.
Epa, Hoa,
Epa.
Daben.
Say it again.
Epa,
Epa.
Epa,
Hua.
Hoa,
Daben.
Daben. Now together, Epa, Hoa, Daben.
Awesome. I wish I had a gun to give you a 21 gun salute. Awesome. So, how are you doing? How is Israel doing with regards to the Hamas war? I think we need to get back to that as well. How is that impacting on your resources to wage this war? This is the bigger enemy you call Iran, but you still have Hamas to deal with in Gaza, and there are other remnants you have to deal with. First of all, what is the level of control Israel has today over the proxies, and how is the addition you are bringing on affecting anything in terms of your resources and capability?
So actually the Hamas challenge is linked with the Iranian challenge. This is one of the proxies. This challenge was more complicated in the sense that when we managed to bring down the Hezbollah in South Lebanon, they have not been intertwined in such a way with civil population as the Hamas is. Our main challenge with Hamas is the activists.
Okay.
40,000 at the beginning of the campaign. Nowadays, we believe 25,000 are hiding behind civil population of about 2 million people that they consider they use them, or if you wish, abuse them as a human shield. So this is why the campaign is taking such a long time. Look, Gaza is not a huge place. It is 60 by 4. It's 240 square kilometers. The area is not huge, but it is a very congested area.
Okay.
And on top of it, we had there 251 hostages. Nowadays, we still have 50 hostages that are being kept or held by Hamas in the dungeon of Gaza. So we cannot act militarily the way we want to.
Okay.
This is why this campaign takes such a long time. If this was a pure Israeli Defense Forces against the Hamas, this challenge could have ended long time ago. But since we are having two, I would say, if you want, obstacles militarily, one is the 2 million innocent civilian population in Gaza, and the other is the Israeli hostages held by Hamas, and the Hamas using them as a safety net, if you wish. We have to move very slow in Gaza. This is why it is taking already 630 days. And I think the situation there is, I will not hide, I think it's a huge tragedy. It's a huge tragedy for the Palestinian people. It is a huge tragedy for us. I think the Hamas has the key to solve these tragedies. They know exactly what they need to do. They have to release our hostages.
How many are left now?
50 are
50.
50.
And how many of theirs are on your side?
Excuse me?
How many hostages does Israel have?
No, you mean Hamas hostages?
Yes.
We
Hamas
don't have hostages. We have prisoners, people that have been indicted in court.
Okay.
People that they had a lawyer to defend them.
Okay.
It's completely not the same situation. Indeed, the Hamas used, or if you want, abused our hostages in order to release their own people, which is very painful for us, but we did it. Unfortunately, statistics shows that when those prisoners have been released from Israeli prison because of this trade-off with Hamas against our innocent people, 90%, if not more, they go back to terror. So this is an issue that is really, there is a big debate in Israel about it. But the situation is that already for many years, Israel against Israeli hostages is willing to release terrorists that have been indicted and they are sitting in Israeli jail.
Okay.
The problem is not so much those prisoners. The problem is our 50 hostages in Gaza that are there already for more than 120 days. And not all of them are with us. Some of them, I think most of them are dead. We believe, to the best of our knowledge,
have you confirmed that?
we will not confirm until we see a body. Or hopefully somebody alive.
Okay.
But our assessment, we know for sure that there are still 50 people there. Our assessment that unfortunately a big number of them are not with us anymore. I don't want to go into details, even though I think Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday evening he just did. He has better sources than I. It is a huge tragedy that is casting a shadow over the Israeli society that has to be said, and will do it for a long time. This crisis that we are facing as people since the 7th of October 23, look, militarily will put an end to it. And the day after, Hamas will not be there. Because if Hamas is there, that is to say that the 7th of October will come day in, day out. They say very clearly, just like the Iranians, let me just finish. We take our enemies very seriously. They say something, we take it seriously. We didn't take them seriously on the 7th of October 23. We were naive. We are not going to make any more mistakes. Please.
So I want to revert to some of the messages I have, but before then, when I interviewed you the first time, I did ask you that terrorists are a difficult crop of people to uproot. You have had Hamas on your heels for so many years. You attack, they go down, they come back. And you said that this time around, you have sworn to uproot them. Then I said that it is nearly impossible to uproot a terrorist organization.
No, it is nearly impossible to uproot the idea, the ideology, the agenda. But it is possible to uproot the means to fulfill the agenda. That's exactly the same policy vis-a-vis the Iranians. If they want to keep on hating us, that's fine. If they want to keep on continue with those
statements,
there's nothing we can do about it. What we can do is to make sure that they will not have the weapon, they will not have the means to do it. That's our aim vis-a-vis Hamas, and this is our aim vis-a-vis Hezbollah, and this is our aim and target vis-a-vis Iran. We cannot fight the hatred. We're not happy with the hatred.
But the hatred is what inspires the regrouping. The hatred is what inspires the amassing of weapons. And
Indeed.
When you see little kids on CNN, on Al Jazeera, on BBC, crying, seeing their fathers being bombed, you are grooming the next generation of enemies against Israel. What do you say to that?
I say that we did not choose this war. We didn't choose the war against the Hamas. We didn't choose the war against Hezbollah. We didn't choose the war against the Houthis. We didn't choose the war against Iran. Those wars have been enforced on us. The Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke about the Holocaust. The Holocaust is something that cast a very heavy shadow on the Israeli people, on the Jewish people all over the world. This was 5 years of the Second World War where Jews were slaughtered, mainly between 42 and 45, 1942, 1945, where 6 million Jews were slaughtered because they could not defend themselves. The whole idea of Israel and the Israeli Defense Forces is that we need to defend ourselves. We shall not be slaughtered again as we were in Europe in the 40s. It is painful, it has a price, but we are not willing to go again to the same position. We know that we pay the price. We have to make sure that the enemy is paying a dearest price, a price which is more significant, because if there is one thing that will, at the end of the day, guarantee our future in the Middle East, is deterrence. Only if Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and the Houthis will be deterred, in other words, will be afraid of Israel, this is the guarantee to our future. There isn't, unfortunately, much love, much affection in this place of the world. There is too many people there, too many groups that would like to get rid of the Jewish state.
Why?
we have
Why?
no intention
Why do you
to go
think
anywhere.
Israel has so many enemies? Why?
I think
There must be a reason.
Unfortunately, and I've studied Islam, and I have a lot of sympathy and admiration for Islam, but there are some radical groups within the Islamic belief that they lean on some texts, we can speak about it more, that are calling to the or anti-Jewish texts that goes way back to the time of the Prophet. Again, I think majority of Muslim people do not follow this line of extremism, of radicalism, but there are some radical Islamic groups that are calling still, or are still having, I would say, anti-Semite agenda, and would like to bring an end to the Zionist state. This is in the case of some of the proxies. In the case of Iran, I think it's a combination of a religious agenda plus a political one. They would like to be the strongest player, the strongest actor in the Middle East. Currently, they look at Israel and they say, Israel is too strong. We need to be the strongest player in the Middle East. So in the case of Iran, I think it's a combination of a religious agenda and a political, I would say, inspiration or political wish.
Is diplomacy a possibility in ending this war? Because just as the Iranian parliament has done, I think yesterday, approving a law to close their side of the Hormuz, Strait Hormuz. And the question is that this is going to have some rippling effects on the global economy. Is Israel considering, and Israel will certainly be affected by the closure as well.
Of course. Ghana as well.
Ghana as well. Is Israel considering a diplomatic way out of this row?
I think it's not about what Israel will choose, but it's about what the Iranian will choose. I think largely they have two options. One option, which I think is wrong, is the radical one. It's the violent one. It's the aggressive one. And this will be closing the Hormuz and addressing American targets all over the Middle East. Israeli targets they are targeting anyway. But if they will add to it, closing the Hormuz, Straits of Hormuz, and attacking American sites in the Middle East, I think it's going to be mad. I think it's crazy. I don't think there is any wisdom behind it, but they might choose this track. There is another track which I think makes more sense, and this is the diplomatic track. If indeed, in the day after they suffered all this blow from Israel, and I think it's quite clear that currently Israel has the upper hand.
You think so?
By all means. I think it's quite clear.
By what measure do you say that?
By the damage which has been done to the Iranian nuclear sites, by the damage that was done to the Iranian military sites, by the damage that was done to the all the sites that we were addressing. We didn't finish the job, but we are going to do it. We are going to fulfill our aims, the military aims, quite soon. And then again, Iran will have to choose either the escalate the conflict.
But you have bombed their military sites. But you have lost civilians.
Of course. And I said 25.
And you say that they are more damaged.
Look, first, I think it's quite clear. I don't want to make a stock taking. You shouldn't do stock taking when human life is
involved.
But we have managed to bring down Natanz. We have managed to bring down Isfahan. The Americans managed to bring down Fordow. We have managed to bring down 10 nuclear scientists that had the no one with the know-how in the brain. They are not with us anymore. Bismarck, don't take me into this stock taking, but I think everybody that will make a comparison.
You think that 1-to-1 Israel is tops in terms of the damage?
I think Israel have suffered some damage, but the Iranians have suffered much more. I think it is clear for the Iranians as well that Israel has the upper hand in this confrontation. But go back to your question that I tried to answer. Iran has two options: either to escalate the confrontation, I think it's going to be made, or to try to downgrade the level of the confrontation by going into a political track. But then they have to show that they mean business and stop bluffing the international community as they are doing since 1979. By saying this, I mean they have to put an end, complete end to their nuclear ambition, to put an end to the enrichment, to put an end to the conversion, to put an end to a ballistic development plan, missile development plan that aims, as the Prime Minister said, reaching 3,000 missiles every year, like around 300 every month, so around 3,000 every year, 10,000 in 3 years. Each one of these missiles can carry between 500 and 1,000 kilograms of TNT. The Iranian people are poor people. They are suffering. Their economy is broken. Instead of developing in the welfare and the social, I would say, security and the food security of the poor 90 million Iranian people, they invest in nuclear bomb and they invest in ballistic missiles. The day they will stop to do it will show you that this is a different Iran that we are not going to have any problem with it. Can the current regime in Iran, can it lead Iran into be different? I have my doubts. But as I said before, we want to put an end to the means. And if we can put it through diplomatic channel, that's excellent. So far, it didn't work. We said from the very early beginning, if the diplomatic effort will not succeed in bringing down Iranian nuclear and ballistic missile ability, we'll do it through a different channel, through a different means, and that's what we did.
Well, I have some messages here, and this one says, Bibi, I heard the ambassador say that Iran has footprints in Ghana. Can he share with us the areas in Ghana where their terrorist footprints can be found? You have some information?
There was one event in 2021 when an Iranian cell was caught here. It was in the media. It's not a wide-known phenomena here. There was one case. At the same time, there was an issue in Senegal. There were cells that were active in Kenya and in Ethiopia. There is...
Is this information something that was within the intelligence community?
This is a case that was published in the media.
Awesome.
Otherwise, I wouldn't speak about it. That has to be said. I'll take this opportunity to say that we are very happy with the cooperation we get here from your police, etc. We feel very safe here. Again, this is one cell that was discovered in 2021. It's like 4 years ago. We feel very safe here. We feel at home here.
You feel at home here. Okay, so somebody is not too happy with me for interviewing you twice. That is their view, and they are entitled to it. Okay, so...
twice? I'm not happy that you don't interview me more.
We would have more sessions.
Balance is...
we would have more sessions. These are things that come every now and then, and so we don't really worry about them. Nidza Gilad sends us the Israeli and the Ghanaian flag together. Thank you for joining us with that one.
Can I say that this is my wife?
Oh, okay. Oh, madam. Wow, good to see. Oh, wow. Nidza Gilad. Wow. Okay. It didn't click. I didn't pay attention to the surname.
This is my wife.
Oh, madam, good afternoon and thanks
She is my biggest supporter.
Awesome.
Though she criticized me every time after I come back from an interview, she said, you had to do this, you had to do this.
She's always in your corner.
As I said, 35 years of marriage, it brings a lot of interactions.
That's right. Suleiman Kwenu said, to be honest with you, Bibi, you are being biased. Why do you always invite only the Israelis to come and justify their atrocities, Palestinians who are struggling to get food for their daily lives? Well...
When he said Bibi, Bibi is you?
Yes, me.
Ah, really?
Yeah, I know Benjamin Netanyahu is also Bibi.
Bismarck Brown is
That's
Bibi. Okay. Sorry. Okay.
Now you get it. Okay,
Please.
that's all. All right. So, do you have any expectations from Ghana in terms of what is going on currently between Israel and Iran? I mean, certainly nations will come to a point where they have to take stance and take decisions. Any expectations from your African allies?
Look, that's a sensitive topic. We believe that whenever a state which is considered to be a good friend of Ghana or of any other African country is facing a challenge which we call existential challenge. It's not just another challenge. It's not the Hezbollah in Lebanon or Hamas in Gaza. This is an existential challenge. This is the greatest challenge that we are facing since our establishment as a sovereign state in 1948. I know that the Ghanaian people, they care. We enjoy.
They care.
They care. They care for us. Okay. I know that whenever I go in the street outside of this studio in the Makola market, when I go to...
Oh, you go to Makola market?
I do. I do.
See.
I
told you with Madame?
Yes, of course. She likes to do shopping there. We meet every place we go, to Accra Mall, you name it. We meet Ghanaian people. They hear that we come from Israel. They share with us their love, their admiration, their support. I think the government as a government might have, I would say, has to be more careful, has to be more balanced. I understand that the biggest challenge now that Ghana is having with this conflict in the Middle East is the rise of the fuel, of the oil. Unfortunately, oil went up since the beginning of the confrontation quite significantly. I have all the numbers, but it's not important now. I understand the concern of Ghana. Ghana is saying very clearly that they would like to see an end to this conflict. So do we. We would like to see an end as soon as possible, but not too soon in the sense that this campaign will be over before we have managed to challenge all the targets, before we have managed to bring down all or most of the nuclear plants' ability in Iran, and also all or most of the ballistic missiles. If indeed, and by the way, it is the same logic vis-a-vis Hamas. If we'll put an end to the military campaign before we have achieved all or most of the targets, most of the aims, we have failed.
That's a big one. Anyway.
It's a big one. We thank the government of Ghana. Ghana is playing a very important role. We spoke earlier on about the IAEA, the board of the International Atomic Energy Association, the board of governors of the IAEA has 35 states. Ghana happens to be the chair of the board. I think they are doing a very decent job. And, we have, on top of this public conversation, we have an ongoing, intimate, important political dialogue with your government. And if we have sometime differences, we know to iron it in a very friendly way. For I think the relationship between the two states in the last 67 years since your establishment were very friendly, and I think both countries can trust each other.
Both countries can trust each other, you are sure. But our position as board chair of the IAEA is quite strategic. And that puts a lot of pressure on Ghana in terms of the reports of the board and all of that. And in that regard, I'm sure Israel has some expectations, right?
Yeah, I made no secret that at a certain vote, 24 hours before the campaign started, the famous vote of the non-compliance, where the Secretary General of the IAEA, Rafael Grossi, said that Iran is in non-compliance vis-a-vis its commitment to the IAEA on developing the nuclear program. And he said, we cannot guarantee anymore that this program is only for civil users, which is very serious when it comes from the professional body. We expected and we thought that Ghana should support it. Ghana abstained. A similar resolution in 2005, 20 years ago, Ghana voted for. This time, Ghana abstained. I guess this is because also Ghana is the chair, and the chair usually would like to be neutral. We understand it. As I told you, the relationship are solid, they are strong, and as I told you, just like between me and my wife Nitza, 35 years, sometimes we have disagreements between Israel and Ghana. It is 70 years nearly of marriages. And basically, when the infrastructure of the relationship are solid and strong, you can iron also some differences, and we do it day in and day out. And again, I think out of all the 54 states in Africa, of which we have relations with about 48, I think we can be quite happy in the relationship with Ghana, even though sometimes we have disagreement like we just had on the issue of the IAEA.
And I remember reading our Foreign Affairs Minister when he met you, took the opportunity to state or restate Ghana's position as far as our non-aligned position is concerned and all of that. I am happy to learn that the relationship between Ghana and Israel is quite solid, and it's on mad at all.
Shouldn't take you by surprise. It's a given.
Awesome. Ambassador, I think we'd have to leave it here. I'm grateful once again for your time. And what would be your last words? What would you leave with my viewers on Facebook and my listeners on radio? There are people who want to visit Israel. They are not sure if this is the best time to go to Israel. There is a huge business community that may have business links. What's the advice? Is this the best time? Of course, I shouldn't ask if it's the best time to visit Israel, but is it okay to visit Israel around this time?
Today or tomorrow, not. Again, even the Ethiopian Airlines that many Ghanaian people used to go to Israel for pilgrimage, for business, for studies, is not flying anymore. But there will be a day after.
Okay.
When the dust will settle, things will go back to normal. And again, let me just end. First of all, thank you for inviting me for a second time within a year. I saw somebody was not happy about it, but I'm always very happy to speak with you. I think, Bibi, you are asking a very serious question, and I'm always a little bit tense before I enter the studio, but I hope I manage to give good answers. I think the security and welfare and well-being of Ghana is very important to Israel, as the security and welfare and well-being of Israel is very important to the Ghanaian people and to the Ghanaian government. And I'm sure this is going to be the situation in the future as well, where I hope that Israel will have to face less challenges.
Less challenges. I said we're done, but there's this message buzzing on my WhatsApp console. Let me just ask this and then we'll go.
Please.
Someone wants to know, he's Paul. He says, Bibi, ask Ambassador for me. Is today's Israel the biblical Israel we have known, or this is a new Israel? Please, I want the education because we've been arguing over this since morning when we got to the office. Happy to hear the Israeli ambassador. Please let him clarify for me. He wants to know if today's Israel is the biblical Israel we have read about, and no.
I have to think if I understand correctly.
The question. Okay, so probably let me bring some context to this. We in Ghana are very much Christians. There is a huge Christian population in Ghana than other religions. And so you can see from the statistics that a lot of Christians would always embark on pilgrimage to Israel and go and visit historic sites and reconnect with their spiritual roots as Christians. And there is a school of thought that old Israel we read about in the Bible, the days of Abraham and Noah and all them, is long gone, and this is a new Israeli state that is created. It's a huge perception out there some people have. And so I think that is the context within which he's asking whether this is the biblical old Israel we have known, or this is a new Israel state. I'm not sure if it's clear now.
No, I think I understand.
Okay.
Let me put it this way. What was the name of the gentleman who asked? Paul.
Yeah.
Paul. So I'm addressing my question to you and to Bibi. Israel, since its establishment in 1948, is leaning heavily on the Bible.
Okay.
The Bible is the biblical historical promise for the Jewish people to establish their state, their land in Israel, in Zion. That's the source of Zionism.
Okay.
Indeed, Israel is a very modern state nowadays.
Okay.
Technologically, you name it. It's very economically, Israel is a very well-advanced state, but at the end of the day, we lean heavily on the Bible, on the morale of the Bible, on the message of the Bible. If you wish, the DNA of the Bible is the DNA of the state. You cannot disconnect Israel from the Bible. On Saturdays, on synagogues, we open the Bible, we read from the Bible. When I say Bible, is what you mean when you say the Old Testament.
Okay.
So we lean heavily on the Bible.
So it's a Bible without the New Testament.
The Bible, when we say the Bible, we mean what you call the Old Testament.
The Old Testament, okay.
However, I know that much of the support that we are getting in this country is leaning on the religion, is leaning on good Christian people that support the Jewish people in Israel. In that sense, the answer to your question, Paul, is yes. Israel is the same land that used to be ruled by King David, by King Saul, by all the kings and the figures you know from the Bible. Indeed, it's a modern country, but a country that cannot be detached from the Bible. So if I understand you correctly, Israel is a modern biblical country.
Israel is a modern biblical country, the modern version of the biblical Israel we have known, you say.
I hope I managed to answer Paul's question.
I hope you got it too. Thank you so much. His Excellency Roey Gilad has been my guest this afternoon. He's the ambassador of the State of Israel to Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. Thank you once again, sir, and I appreciate your time. My greetings to Madam.
Thank you very much, Bibi, and thank you very much for all the listeners who contributed their contribution. Whether they liked me or they didn't like me, I even happy and I forgive the guy who said that I'm invited too often. All is good. I'm willing to answer all the questions. And again, thank you very much for inviting me.
You're always welcome. And I'm sure we'll have a third.
Happy FM